I hope that people do not cower in fear. This is really scary. We all have to use our voices in this moment, because if we don't, they're going to take it away.
I'm Sally Christensen, the founder and CEO of Argent, a women's workwear brand. And this is Work Friends, a podcast for those who take their work, but not always themselves, seriously.
Work Friends.
Today on Work Friends, I'm joined by Shaniqua McClendon. Shaniqua is a political strategist, commentator, and the vice president of politics for Crooked Media. She joined the company, most known for its suite of popular podcasts, including Pod Save America, back in 2018. This followed stints working for several elected officials and in the Obama White House. Her role is not focused solely on the media arm of Crooked, but its Vote Save America initiative. It's here where Shaniqua's work has been making strides to drive voters into action, not just in the biggest elections across the country, but on local levels that often matter the most. I'm so excited to ask her about this and learn more about her story. Now on Work Friends, Shaniqua McClendon. Shaniqua, welcome to Work Friends.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited that you're here because we are big fans of your work, and I'm excited to learn about your personal story and journey in getting here.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with an icebreaker. Your biggest oh no moment this week. What's gone absolutely sideways and how did you handle it?
Honestly, this morning, the woman who does my hair uses, those wax sticks that you can just like put on your hair to like make sure flyaways don't.
Stop it.
Wait, what?
Wait. We were just talking about this. Okay, I just learned about them.
Really?
Just learned about them.
Oh my gosh, I love them.
I just used it this morning for the first time. Well, this is crazy. Gina and I were just talking about it. I said, I didn't grow up with sisters. Why didn't no one tell me that these
they're
exist?
Great. They do a lot. So I forgot mine at home. And whenever my hair is straightened, I like to have them. But also the woman who does my hair has this cool trick where she will actually like kind of put it on the length of your hair and then curl it. And it holds the curls really, really, really well. And I didn't have mine. So part of the other reason I was a little late this morning is I tried to find a drugstore that had them. And I went to a CVS, they didn't have them. And I don't know if it's the Apple map or what. They kept telling me there were drugstores like in the big buildings, like the Avenue of States or something building, and then Rockefeller. There's like Walgreens in the middle of them. And I would go to both these buildings and they're like, no, there's not anything in here. And so I walked around the city and then I ended up back at the CVS and just got something else to put on my hair.
Wait, are you still using Apple Maps? Is that what I just discovered?
So, okay, you're not the only person who judges me about that. But
awful. Google all the way.
That's what my sister says. But Apple Maps are great for walkers. And I walk everywhere. Google Maps is like the real direction. Like if you're walking north, the map orients that way. And I just need it to orient forward, like whatever's in front of me.
It sounds like you haven't given Google a real shot because I'm just going to agree to distree. Okay, Carolina girls, best in the world. I'm from South Carolina.
Yes, that's the other Carolina. I did. So we moved to North Carolina when I was 9 years old.
From where?
New York. I was born in Queens. My father still lives there. I'm going to hang out with him tomorrow. But yeah, my parents, they had us pretty young and got married when they were like 19. But when they got a divorce, my mother's side of the family is from North Carolina. So we all went down there. Me and my two sisters. I have a twin sister and a younger sister. That is normally my fun fact. And yeah, from 9 until 22, I was down there. But
which town did you grow up in?
A very small town called Creedmoor. We did not have sidewalks, except on Main Street. We had sidewalks.
I know Creedmoor.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, I grew up. So we spent our summers in Asheville. So
okay.
Wow. Yeah. So I feel like I know. Well, and South Carolina and North Carolina, you drive. Everywhere. So I feel like I know every corner of every state.
Wow. Yes, I am from Creedmoor. My best friend, who actually lives up here, her father was mayor while we were there. And yeah, very small town. It has sidewalks now. And now that Raleigh is kind of spilling over, people are starting to move there. But yeah, moving from New York to North Carolina was just really shocking. I learned new words. My cousins, one of them asked me, and my sister, and he just kept saying, "Do you cuss? Do you cuss?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means." And so then he said a curse word, and I was like, "Oh, you mean curse?" And I was like, "No, I don't curse." And yonder, and I just learned all fixin' to or finnin', fixin' to. Yeah, learned all of these things. But now I love North Carolina. I talk about it all the time. Something I always think is funny, I hated barbecue when I actually lived in North Carolina. And when I went to work for Senator Hagan, they would have it in the office all the time. And that is when I finally grew to appreciate it. And barbecue's amazing.
I mean, at the age of 9, that is a stark like that's a big change from New York.
Yeah.
My husband, when we go home, he's from Oregon. I have to translate for him. And like my accent comes out.
Yeah,
it's
same.
the most fascinating thing. It's like speaking another language.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there are some real.
I know, but you understand it.
Everything. Yeah. And I can speak it a little bit. And my mom talks that way. She all those words, those are hers. That's her language. Do you recall the first examples of work that you witnessed? So how were you thinking? When did you start thinking about like career?
Oh wow! So I think I was just a nosy kid. I used to want to be a psychologist.
Okay.
Just so I could hear people's like life gossip, not understanding that therapists and psychologists serve a real purpose. They don't just listen to people's problems; they're actually supposed to help them. And so I got out of that mindset probably in middle school. But I got really interested in business. I grew up, so after my parents split up and we moved to North Carolina, my mother didn't go to college. And so when we got to North Carolina, initially she started working at KFC, which I hated for stupid reasons. I was a kid and I was like, why does she have to wear this uniform and like be here? But she also hated it and lasted 2 days because she said something about having to cut up the ingredients for coleslaw and it was just too much. And so she left. But she ended up getting a job as an executive assistant at what was Wachovia Bank at the time, now Wells Fargo.
Yes.
But she was making $22,000 a year and she had 3 daughters. And so that just really got me fixated on how can I make money when I get into my career. And so I just thought to myself, I'm going to go into business. I don't know what that means, but that is what I'm going to do because people who work at businesses and in corporate America make a lot of money. And so that, my upbringing and kind of like what we didn't have really impacted at the time what I thought I wanted to do. But then, I started like little odd jobs. I don't know. It was before I was legally able to work. My cousin had a wedding catering business, would help her with that. One of my mother's colleagues, we made little wedding favors, me and my twin sister for her daughter's wedding. Like we were just always doing little stuff. But my first real job was Domino's Pizza, which I loved.
Oh, that garlic butter. Were you being supported by family members? Like were you when you were in North Carolina, because it was your mom and your 2 sisters? Yeah.
So my grandmother, her side of the family's from North Carolina. And actually when we moved from New York, my mother didn't move immediately with us. But we had to get down there so we could start school. And so we were just living with my grandmother at the time. And yes, my grandmother has 6 or 7 brothers or sisters, and like 3 or 4 of them were in North Carolina. And, our cousins, like my mother's side of the family on her mother's side, huge family in North Carolina. So there was a lot of support. And, it was great. Some of our cousins from New York ended up moving down. It was just kind of like a lot of us and everyone helped out.
Were you aware of the hardship that your mom was experiencing just trying to put food on the table?
Yes and no. I don't think I appreciated it fully for what it was, but I was 9. So the reason I even ended up working at Domino's is because that ended up being her second job. And so that's how I ended up there when I was 16. But when she got that second job, I was not home that much. And at 9, I started like cooking dinner for me and my sisters and just making sure everything was running well in the house. And that's when you start to notice and like getting clothes from Goodwill. And my mother was just really trying to make ends meet. And also I think this probably maybe came from a financial place, but also her just being really generous. One of her friends from New York really wanted to move to North Carolina, and she had 2 kids, and that turned into 4 of us, plus the 3 of them, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You just kind of saw it in a lot of different ways. But I think when I was younger, I was more so resentful for what we didn't have. But when I got older and I really understood like how like $22,000 cannot go far. You can add a Domino's, hourly. I don't know. Minimum wage was not even $7.50, or is it $7.50 right now? I think, or $7.15. But it was in the $5 then, and so I now know that she made miracles happen, and I have a twin sister, so whenever one of us needed something, she had to get two of it. And in middle school, there was always a big trip every year, and 8th grade was Disney World is in Florida, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Disney World, and she figured out how to pay for both of us to go. I mean, every year we never missed out on things, and so as I've gotten older, I appreciate it much more. I don't know why I feel the need to insert this here, but I will. My mother, she passed away in 2010, and that is when I started to just really reflect on everything. And even though growing up, we had to grow up pretty quickly and be independent, or just be able to take care of ourselves in certain ways. When she passed away, I was like 22. But I was really ready to be okay and take care of myself.
It sounds like education was prioritized too, somewhere in your childhood.
Oh, absolutely. I'd get so frustrated. I'd come out, your science or social studies book, they have the questions at the end of the chapter, and she'd just, come out and ask for help. I know it's in the passage you just read. Did you read it? And it's like, did you read every word? Are you highlighting? And so, that helped. But she just made it clear that education was going to be the way that we succeeded. And I always say education is the thing that had, a profound impact on my life and being able to kind of have the accomplishments that I have now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was raised similarly, where it was about independence and being able to just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about first examples of experience with the government?
I'd say college is where it really hit me. I started college in August or fall of 2005. And that was when Hurricane Katrina happened. And I remember standing in front of the television in my room just watching the news, and I was sobbing and I couldn't control it. And I couldn't understand why this was affecting me so bad. But then you see the aftermath of the federal, or the lack of a federal response, and kind of the finger pointing, and that, and seeing people, mostly Black people, like floating on doors trying to get to safety and not having the resources to evacuate, and then not getting what they needed after. And so that is when I started to pay more attention to policy and trying to understand that. And then when I graduated is when Barack Obama was running for president, and he was talking about healthcare and, all of these policies. And that was kind of when I decided I wanted to go into public policy. I really felt education had made the difference in my life, and I knew a lot of people like me were not having a good education experience. And so I wanted to figure out, like, what kind of policies do we need so that more people can have the experience that I had? Because even at my high school, 5 of us went to UNC, which was a huge deal because normally it was only 1 or 2 students. And UNC is a wonderful school, but there were other schools in North Carolina where hundreds of their students were going from that high school into UNC. So I knew something was off.
It's fascinating to me that Katrina had such a big impact on you too at that age. I'll say, because you were in North Carolina. I was in South Carolina in school at the time. I remember students being displaced to our school. I don't know if you had that experience.
I don't think we had that.
We took in probably like 6 students, and I went to Furman, which is a smaller school, so it was more obvious maybe. So eventually, you attended UNC Chapel Hill, which is a great school and impossible to get into now.
Yeah,
by the way.
I was just watching the news this morning, and they were talking about how hard it is to get into college now, just generally.
And how much you're going to pay once you do get in.
Yeah.
Decided to study journalism. So that does explain a little bit as to why you're more plugged in probably than maybe most students.
I love my journalism degree. I really wanted to do business, as I had mentioned, but at Carolina, you have to apply to the business school after you're already in UNC, and I got rejected.
No.
Yes, I was devastated. But then I got an email that was like, you got to pick a major, lady. And so I enjoyed writing, and, I watched the news and stuff. And so I picked journalism. It was the other, big professional school. I ended up reapplying to the business school and got in. But once I was in the journalism school, I really loved it. Writing articles, getting to interview people. And I did the PR track, which I think has helped me so much because I didn't go into journalism or PR after I graduated, but working in politics, you have to appeal to so many different audiences, and that PR degree really helped me understand, who am I talking to, what message do I want to get to them so that my boss can, look better and appeal to those folks.
Yeah, I think that's one of the better majors, to be honest. I did business, and it's just a generalist degree, so I ended up going back for my MBA because I felt like I needed more of a specialty.
Yeah.
What did you do between undergrad and pursuing your master's, or did you take time off?
Yes, I did. Oh my gosh, I applied to grad school several times before I finally went. But after I graduated, I went to work at United Way. So Barack Obama won during my senior year.
Yep.
I became obsessed with getting to DC somehow, some way, and that didn't happen immediately. I graduated. I had actually had a job offer at Credit Suisse, but at that point, my heart and soul was like, I got to go into the public sector. I want to help people. And then Barack Obama just kind of put a stamp on that. So I turned down the job offer, which my father, now he loves what I'm doing. Is so happy for me. And he's like, you turned down a job and you don't have one? And it's like, no, I don't. But I ended up getting a temporary fundraising job at United Way. And that just really, it fulfilled me in this way that I just would have never thought it could. I did a lot of fundraising for organizations that were helping low-income schools. And then during that time, my boyfriend at the time sent me the White House internship program. And again, I had been obsessed with Barack Obama and going to DC. So the thought of getting to put those two things together, and I applied and I kept moving through the process and was just like, what is happening? And I was also working part-time at Macy's while I was working at United Way. And I saw a voicemail. I played it. I hid behind the little cash register, and they were like, we're so excited to welcome you into this internship. And I ran around that store
oh my God,
like a crazy,
chills.
Sorry, I feel like I'm about to cry right now, but I was so happy. I mean, Macy's was fine. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about towels and stuff. But I just felt like, in 2009, we're in the recession, things are not looking good. And I was like, I have this amazing opportunity. And I was living back at home at the time, which was about an hour and a half drive from Macy's, and my phone was dying. And so, but I really wanted to tell my mother in person, so I did not call her. I just drove home. I texted so many people. I don't text and drive. My phone died. I got home. I burst in the house, and I was like, I got the internship. And she, oh my gosh, sorry. I still have emails from her that I keep in my inbox, and one of them is when I sent her my pictures from my internship, which I got one. It's a small group photo, two different groups, but one with the president and then one with the first lady. And, they told us, do not post these. So I was like, you cannot put these out anywhere. Uh-huh. And she's like, okay, well, I'm still cheesing, looking at these. But yeah, anyway, I rushed home. I burst in the house and told her, and she was just so excited. I'm happy I was living home at that time. I was so mad to be living home after college, but she ended up passing probably a month after my internship ended. So I'm really happy that I got to be home during that time, and that she got to see that, if not the rest of everything else.
I mean, hats off to your mom too. I can't imagine all that she went through just trying to create that opportunity for you.
Yeah, because they didn't pay then, and me living at home is how I was able to save up to even be able to afford the little space my friend let me live in his apartment.
And coming out of internship is when you then went to Harvard, is that right?
No, I went and worked on the Hill, which is another thing. I always say that was my mother's final gift to me. Toward the end of my internship, the Affordable Care Act was passed while I was at the White House, and I was like, I want to go work on the Hill. That is where the action happens. And I told her that, and she connected me with her coworker's son. He was a lobbyist at the time, but he had worked on the Hill, and we chatted, and he was what he called going dark to study for the bar. And so the contact information I had after we spoke, it didn't work anymore. But the last thing he said to me, he connected me with a few people on the Hill and said, I don't want anything from you. You seem like you have a good head on your shoulders. The only thing I ask is that you pay it forward, because none of us get to where we are by ourselves. And that has stuck with me. People, maybe I shouldn't say this, but people will send me, I don't respond to every LinkedIn message, but, I talk to strangers, young people all the time, because I just want to pay that forward. And so I kind of don't hear from him, but I get an email from Senator Hagan's office asking me for an interview. And, my mother died a month before I started that job, and I wouldn't have had it. So, sorry, let me take a step back. I find out 2 years later that Jake, that gentleman I spoke to, is the one who sent my resume into Kay Hagan's office. And so I never actually knew how that job came about. And then when Senator Hagan was up for re-election, I find this out, and the person who tells me, I'm like, do you have his contact information? And so we end up getting breakfast like 4 years after he's done this. And, you know, I told him, I just thanked him so much and told him that I felt like, you know, that was my mother's last gift to me. But yeah, I worked on the Hill for 6 years. I worked for Senator Hagan. She lost in 2014. And then I went to work for Congresswoman Alma Adams, who also represents North Carolina.
Yeah, that's a really fun way to stay connected with your state, too, I would imagine, you know?
Yes, that is how I learned to love barbecue. We had constituent coffees every month in, or was it every week? I can't remember. All I remember is we got free Krispy Kreme because you can take free products from home state companies. And so we got free Krispy Kreme. And those donuts, I now know, have 200 calories each. And I used to eat like 4 of them.
Oh,
whatever was left over.
Hot donut sign. That was like my treat after a dance or like, you know. You did the internship. You worked for Senator Hagan, Congresswoman Adams. Was there any point at which you aspired to run for office yourself?
It's so funny you asked that because I was thinking about that this morning. Yeah, I did want to run for office. I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'd much rather be behind the scenes. And more recently, I mean, it is a thankless job right now. I know why people are frustrated, but there's this other aspect of the job that I don't think is fair, where people like pry, you know, they're just trying to get you. And so now your family is a target. And, you know, another vivid memory for me is when Gabby Giffords was shot. I was watching the news again, and the breaking news came up. And I was working on the Hill at the time. I had been on the Hill for not long. And yeah, I just, all I kept thinking was, I mean, I didn't even know who Gabby Giffords was before that because there's so many House members. But I just thought, why would someone want to harm an elected official? You know, they could be doing something else where they are making a lot more money probably, and they care. And at the time, I would always say, you know, I'm a Democrat. There are Republicans here. We all want this country and world to be better. We just have different beliefs on how we get there. And her being shot didn't align with that. I got into politics in 2010. I started working on the Hill in 2010, rather. And, you know, seeing Barack Obama get elected and this happy moment come. And then I started on the Hill in August. Democrats lost in the midterms in 2010, but the Tea Party came in. And so just my entire time on the Hill was the fracturing of Congress and more division. And even when I was there, behind the scenes, the members were still friendly and cordial with each other. And I even had like friends in Republican offices, but it's really different now. And it doesn't feel like, as a whole, the commitment is to bettering the country. Even while I was on the Hill, staff worked so hard. But if bills are not passing, it's like, okay, like, is this for optics? You know, I came here to actually try to improve people's lives because I thought policy is how you improve people's lives. And I was fortunate enough to be able to work on education policy. I'm in this thing that I really, really want to be in. And education policy was the thing that brought me in, reauthorizing No Child Left Behind. I was there 6 years, and on the third try, it finally was reauthorized. And not the best bill in my eyes, but I got pretty jaded working on the Hill, and then to see what has happened after, I don't know. I still may do it, but before it was something I wanted to do like in my 30s, and now I just think about kind of like finishing out more of my career, and if it still stirs me in maybe 10 or 15 years, I'll think about it, but it's kind of scary right now.
Very scary, and to me that's unforgivable. I think that politics is calling to a lot of great people right now. Like, we've seen droves of individuals sign up to run on the heels of Trump's reelection.
Yeah.
We've seen individuals sign up for, I think, all the right reasons.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can't collectively agree on the fact that like political violence is just a non-starter and like all stand firm against that. It's frightening.
It is. And, you know, with what happened to Charlie Kirk, I really, maybe I didn't believe that we were headed in this direction, but it was the opportunity to say, hey, we need to stop all of this.
Yes.
We need to all, you know, come together. And our leaders particularly had a moment to come together and condemn it and try to move us in a better direction. And that the opposite of that is happening. And, you know, I'm by no means as prominent as the founders of my company. But, you know, I go on television, like I go out there and talk about the things that I believe in. And every day I wake up trying to make this country and world a better place. And the thought that you could be, you know, attacked, murdered for something like that is just, it's really frightening. I mean, I didn't agree with anything Charlie Kirk said, but he had the right to go say the things that he said.
Course.
And it's just scary to me that someone's reaction to his words would be to murder him, because there's always a reverse of that. You know, he believed in what he was saying. I believe in what I'm saying. If someone disagrees with me, you know, it's just really scary to think about. And I'm upset that we are here right now. You know, that assassination told me a lot about where we are as a country. And, you know, I talk to my friends about this all the time. I blame social media for everything. But in this country, we have a social media problem. People are isolated, you know, they're in these echo chambers and they keep spiraling down them. And then people have access to guns. So it's a scary moment right now. And I am really nervous about where we're headed. But, you know, some of the anger I've had over the last week has finally started to transition into the feeling that even got me into politics. You know, I still feel that good feeling I felt when Barack Obama won. And I know we can get back to that. And I know if enough of us say we're not doing the divisive politics anymore, even if we don't agree on the policies, like we'll just fight it out on that, but not like literally fight each other. I know we can do that. I know most Americans do not like what's going on. And I'm just hoping, you know, calmer heads prevail, but they just have to. I don't want to be in a world where they don't.
Agreed. We talked about that when you sat down, but I do remain hopeful and optimistic.
Yeah.
I understand that we, as Americans, overlap on like 90+% of our beliefs and our goals and our wants, and it is about productive dialogue around how we get there and disagreement and being able to disagree, because that generally yields the best outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I also am hopeful, but it's very disheartening.
Yeah, it is. You know, I mentioned I was at a conference yesterday, and the content was amazing. The thing that I was so happy about was just being around people. I've had my moments of like sitting on my phone for hours and scrolling, and have definitely, especially after the election, dealt with some depression. And I would always remind myself, when do you feel best? During and right after you hang out with people that you really enjoy being around. And so I'm trying to do more stuff in person with people, hang out with people. And even, you know, I sent an email out to all of my friends and I was like, I'm going to just start planning stuff. You know, I hope you come to it. And even the reception I mentioned to you tonight, that is how that came about. Tomorrow, me and another friend are bringing our friends together to have dinner. And you know, this email I sent out, 100 people responded and are like, I want to be invited to these little get-togethers that you're doing. And so I'm really focused on how, I know it does something for me, so how can I create that for other people? And I think it's a reminder. I got into politics because I wanted to help people and I wanted to help them live better lives, but politics isn't the only way to do that. You know, we all live in this society together, and whatever it is, I'm just trying to plug into it and make people feel better.
Yeah, I'm deriving so much joy from our community that we dress and we convene, and seeing the appetite for in-person connections.
Yeah, I've been to some of the events at your store in DC. I mean, it's always just, it's just nice to be around people who, you know, have some shared values. And even if you don't have the, same outlooks on life, I have become closer to some Republicans, and it's just nice to, not people who, wish I wasn't here or anything. And I'm not saying that about Republicans, but I just mean on the fringes of both sides. But when I was at the Kennedy School after the 2016 election, I just started trying to be in spaces that I typically wasn't, so I could understand other people's perspectives, because that's what I wanted. When I was frustrated about politics, I'm like, why don't they understand like what's good for me? And so I wanted to understand those things. So yeah, it sounds like a tall order to try to bring people who disagree together, but that is my kind of ultimate goal, that we can just be around each other, because it's really hard to hate someone that you sat and had like a 40-minute conversation with.
It's also nice to come out of isolation and remember that there are so many more like-minded people than we remember. Okay.
When you get off the internet,
at some point we get to Harvard. That's got to happen next. So eventually you attended Harvard for your master's.
Yes.
And I think people, myself included, have a perception of what that institution looks like. And how did that experience meet or not meet your expectations?
Those were two of the hardest years of my life. And like, I still get like emotional talking about it. So I went to the Kennedy School of Government, and I know this sounds crazy. I was trying to get out of politics, but I had a government background. My plan was to do the business government track, go work at a company or corporation, because you don't get paid a lot on the Hill. And I just wanted to finally like make a decent salary. But I got there fall of 2016, and Donald Trump won my first semester. And it was at that point that I told myself I could go not work in politics, and I would spend every other hour of my life trying to, help whoever was running, or I could just stick with it. And then the dean called everyone to the forum, which is the big speaking space. And, he was just kind of like, I'm sure you all are wondering, like, why even get this degree? Why am I here? And he was like, the world needs you now more than ever. And I hadn't been there the night before, so there are balloons in the ceiling, and I don't know why there are balloons in the ceiling. And he says, every election night, regardless of what party wins, we celebrate democracy and we release balloons. But we didn't release the balloons last night. But I have to get these balloons out of the ceiling. So that's what happens. People are crying and the balloons start falling out of the sky. And it is just the saddest thing I have ever witnessed. And then people start popping the balloons. And then someone starts singing Amazing Grace. And it's just this weird, like, people are trying to comfort each other, but these celebratory, like, balloons are coming down. And yeah, that was what shifted me back into politics. And sorry, I've made this so long. But as far as my time at Harvard,
it's a great story. Don't apologize. I'm like, and then what happened?
When I got to the Kennedy School, they boasted about their diversity all the time. And during orientation, I did not see what they were talking about. And my class, my master's in public policy class, there were 240 of us. And there were not that many black students. And there were only 4 black women out of this whole class. And in my cohort of 60 people, there were only 2 black people. I'm one of them. And so, I'm not even there that long. I hear the dean has office hours, and I go to his office hours, and I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? And he said, no, I know it's a problem. I've only been here 6 months. We have this diversity report coming out. It'll help us guide our work moving forward. And I thought to myself, great. The report was a month late when I had spoken to him, and it didn't come out for another 11 months. And it was so, and I'm just talking the quality of it, like looking at the papers, it was bad. And one of my classmates, when they're presenting it to some students, says, if any of us had turned in an assignment that sloppy, you'd fail us. And at the same time, our dean of students, who was the most senior black woman at the school, left. And over time, like a handful of black women left the school. And the final kind of straw for me was our dean, I'm not getting her title exactly right, but it was like the associate dean of the Office of Student Inclusion and Diversity. And she decided to retire in the middle of the year. And I was like, people don't do that. unless they are really frustrated. And so I had asked the dean in a smaller meeting what's going on. And he said to me, he said, I don't think we have a problem with black women leaving the school. It just seems that way because we don't have a lot of black women working at the school. And he said, white professors are leaving as well. And I was just like, okay. But then I had some conversations and was told, if you ask Jean Martinez this publicly, she will tell you why she's really leaving. So there's this big the diversity committee. It's student, faculty, and staff. The dean never comes to these meetings, but he knows people are like riled up. So he's there. And it's also a going away party for Dean Martinez. And they kick off the meeting. No one gets up. So I was like, okay, I'm going up to that mic. And I said, several black women have left the school. I want to know why. And I said, Dean Martinez, if you want to answer this, I would love to hear from you directly. And she got up and she said such nice things about Harvard and the Kennedy School. And I was standing there like, oh crap. I don't know what I'm doing. This is not going the way I expected. And the dean said the same thing to me, but not in as much detail. He was like, I don't think we have a problem here. And then the head of HR got up, black woman, and she said, I can't talk about why those women left. That's a personnel issue. But as a black woman who's been here for 30 years, this is a really difficult environment. And she was very honest. And then folks started getting up and being really, really honest. And then at the end, Dean Martinez got up and said, everyone's been really brave here today. I'm going to be honest about why I'm leaving. She had been in that specific role for 5 years.
She got up again. Okay.
Yeah. And she said, I've never felt as disrespected and unsupported as I have in this role for the last 5 years. And she had been at the school for 29, but in this role. And that was a big turning point at the school. And a handful of me and my classmates took Marshall Gans's organizing class, and we each took on a different aspect of diversity at the school. And mine was the curriculum. I felt like if we are educating the next generation of public policy or policymakers, we have to be honest about the role race and racism play in our public policy. And, Professor Gans was all for it. I got met with such resistance from faculty who accused me of attacking their academic autonomy and authority.
Straight white men?
Yeah, mostly. And then a group of them sat us down for a meeting and was like, why don't you just push for more ethnic study courses? And I was like, that's the problem. We keep pushing this off to the side. And, honestly, I left feeling like nothing had been accomplished. But one professor said to me, they do this all the time. The students come in, they are not pleased, they push for change, but they know you're leaving in 2 years. And then it starts over from, square one. So we went and organized the rising students and the incoming students so that work could keep getting built upon. And then, a few years ago, after I left and thought nothing had happened, they got a mandatory course added to the curriculum around race and racism in this country. But there's so many things I left out of that story, but those were very, very hard years. And the thing I can say about it is I think it gave me a lot of tough skin for the moment we're in now.
It's also fascinating because you've talked about your passion for education and giving access to education, and then your own personal experience is certainly going to inform your ability, I think, to deliver on that, but also your passion.
Yeah, because it's this weird, when people want to talk to me about going to the Kennedy School, I tell them everything, and then I say, but in the world we live in, this credential is really powerful. It opens people's eyes, it opens doors. And so I never tell anyone not to do it, but I always tell them, you have to know what you're going into. And, I graduated in 2018, so I'm not exactly sure what it's like there right now. But, yeah, I loved learning so much. And I did learn a lot there, but it was so hard. And it just still frustrates me that something I loved and enjoyed ended up kind of scarring me in some ways. And yeah, there were just a lot of people around who just didn't get it.
It's not dissimilar from my experience in corporate America with how they treat women, where it's we're going to carve out a day for you to take this course that's solely offered to women,
Right.
or take this day off to go to this women's conference, or do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not looking to be
I'm not the
othered.
problem.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't need to learn more about why I'm the one getting asked to take meeting minutes or to plan the
Exactly.
party. What I need is for you to understand that you're only asking me to do those things, and I'm the same level as everyone else in the room, but I'm not a man.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we action something that's more directly impactful around like coursework in your case?
Right. And everyone needs to be better. So
Correct.
why aren't the people, I don't want to say perpetrators, that sounds like such a harsh word, but it's not normally women who are making the woman take the notes or, you know, bring in the snacks to the office. And so maybe we should be talking to the people who have some blind spots and can be better.
Yeah, it's also a case for diversity. Like, it
Yeah.
is the reason why you need a diverse set of perspectives and experiences. It's going to just, again, like add value to the outcome.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to improve as a result. You know, it's proven through data.
I know. It's like, yeah. You know, data sometimes only matters when it serves people's interest.
Yeah, it's disheartening to hear. Do you find any source of pride from Harvard's actions in the last few months? Or has
Well, yes. So, I mean, as long as they don't give in, because sometimes I see statements and I'm like, are they about to give in? And I will say, seeing them stand up for the institution was the first time I even thought, wow, I'm really like proud of them. They do have a ton of money. You know, I'm still paying my loans back. But they have a lot of money and they have the resources to take on the fight. And specifically because I went to the School of Government, we know what government is and is not supposed to do. I will say, like, it doesn't change the experience I had, but I really came away from seeing that thinking, okay, they do stand for something and they are fighting. And I will say that that is what that institution taught me to do. Fight for the thing that you really care about and you believe in. Because if you don't, you'll get steamrolled. You know, things will not change. And so I am proud of the institution. I just hope that they stick with it. But I do think they're setting an example. If both Columbia and Harvard had given in, I don't know where we'd be right now. Because I think Harvard is a shield for a lot of institutions that would not have been able to stand up to this.
Yeah, and to clarify, like, I think that we're trying to politicize so many things, but this country was built on democracy, a constitution, a belief in the power of the people over the power of an individual or a king, because we broke away from a monarchy.
Yeah.
And what's so frustrating is that we have lost sight of that, I think.
Like who we are as a country.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what we're applauding with Harvard and with a few institutions and companies is their ability to fight for our rights that are outlined in these documents and well documented for hundreds of years, but still very much an experiment. The politicization, though, of some of these basic fundamental rights is what's so infuriating, is that we've really lost the plot.
Yeah.
I love reading about founding fathers. I love reading about the women in their lives who were also really instrumental, like Abigail Adams, let's say, and have such deep appreciation for this country and for what those individuals were able to create, but they're flawed.
Yeah.
I think fast forward to like your experience at Harvard, I think that there are a lot of places and individuals that are trying to do the right thing and they're flawed, and it's necessary for people such as yourself to have the lived experience that you do to come in and be able to have a voice and have a perspective and push back and identify opportunities. And my hope is that they're receptive and able to like improve from that. But I think that can be blown out to companies and the country too.
I hope Harvard can be an example, not just for institutions, but some of these corporations. I mean, I'm just very nervous. Like, I have a journalism degree. When I was at Harvard, a place I did find a lot of refuge was in the Shorenstein Center, which studied the intersection of media and journalism and policy. And what's happening now with the consolidation of media, we don't have local media anymore. A lot of stuff is happening in the shadows, and now there is an effort to just silence people. The First Amendment is the First Amendment. And, you know, again, going back to Charlie Kirk, sure, I didn't agree with most of what he said, but he could say it. I don't know where we are headed, but I hope that people do not, cower in fear. This is really scary, but we all have to use our voices in this moment, because if we don't, they're going to take it away.
I think what you're saying is a nice segue to your eventual move to your current role at Crooked Media. So you joined early on as the political director. Mm-hmm. You're now the VP of political strategy.
Yeah.
Can you first just start by explaining Crooked Media and giving us a baseline? Because I think it's most known for Pod Save America and the marquee podcast, if you will, but it's so much more than that. It's Vote Save America. It's political organizing. So.
Crooked Media was founded in 2017. John, Tommy, and Dan had a podcast before the 2016 election, and then it was really popular. It was a hobby, but they kind of used it to launch a company. The reason they started it is because they were not pleased with the way political media covered the 2016 election and wanted to have a no bullshit conversation about politics. And so it was kind of the place you could come and hear the things you were probably thinking in your head, but hear from experts on how all of this worked. You can't just assume because you want the thing that it can happen. And they built an audience that just wanted to understand. And the big thing was, we weren't just telling people what was wrong, but we were trying to tell them also what they could do to fix it. And that is how Vote Save America came to be. So we could kind of organize and harness this audience into really impactful work. Vote Save America launched on the Colbert Show in 2018. John, and Tommy went on there, and as soon as they told people to go to votesaveamerica.com, the site crashed, which was good.
It's a great
good and bad.
Have. Yeah, no, it's a good problem.
And that's when Vote Save America was born. And I remember when I had my interview with Favreau. He said, I don't even know what we need this job for, but I just know we have a huge audience and they want to do stuff and we want to make sure they're having an impact. But in addition to Vote Save America, we have a bunch of podcasts. We have a legal show called Strict Scrutiny. Each of our 4 hosts of Pod Save America also have separate shows that they're doing. We just brought Alex Wagner into the family. Stacey Abrams has a show with us, and we are doing something called Crooked Con in November. And so that is us. Again, we're just trying to create space for people who want to make this world and country better, and bringing them conversations on organizing. I'll be having a conversation about kind of new practices in organizing, but also talking to elected officials, good communicators, and just trying to open people's minds up to what could be, but also give people a space to come together with people who are like-minded and just be in community with one another. But we've built a tremendous audience, and, to John and Tommy's credit, they've just built so much trust in that audience. And so they have been along for, an 8-year ride. And so it's kind of crazy to think about us, next year we'll turn 9 and then
that
10.
math.
Yeah. And so, I'm excited for that, but essentially we are trying to be an antidote to all the craziness and the mis and disinformation out there, and make sure people know what's going on and what they can do to have a positive impact.
Let me talk about your contributions, or at least some of the work at Vote Save America. So you've raised over $70 million for progressive causes and candidates. You've driven 1 million people to register to vote or check their registration. You've enlisted around 300,000 volunteer shifts. Those numbers are staggering.
I know. It's really crazy. I don't know why I feel weird when they get brought up. I'm not someone who likes compliments make me weird and all of that. But when I think about the impact it's had on, our democracy, it makes me really happy. 2020 was a standout year for us. But I think all that energy had risen to a peak. We are going to relaunch Vote Save America soon under a new vision of the world we're in right now and how people can show up. And I'm excited about that. People don't have the kind of energy they had from 2017 to 2020. People are exhausted. They've been at this for 10 years, and things feel really dark and heavy right now. And so we are trying to respond in a way that meets people where they are, but then gives them the energy, tools, and resources they need to make sure that we can continue in this fight together.
I do think that's one of the most disappointing stats coming out of the 2024 election, is how many people opted not to vote.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear you speak more about the efforts at Vote Save America to meet the current environment, if you're able to share anything about what that pivot looks like.
Yeah, we broadly are trying to kind of undergird the pro-democracy movement. We're trying to be the connective tissue for the pro-democracy movement. And so, that's broader than the way we defined our work before. We were focused on progressives. But right now, we want anyone under our tent who is focused on making sure that this democracy can last. But we also know that we can't just keep asking people to do without pouring into them. So that is something we want to do as well. And we want to make sure that people understand all of this. On the crooked media side, I think we've done a good job of explaining how politics work. But on the Vote Save America side, we want to make sure people understand how organizing works. And something I talk about a lot, which is really central to Vote Save America, is making sure we're having impact. And, it's kind of like progress over performance. I think social media can make people feel like they're having a big impact by doing things on there. And I think social media can be a good start, but making sure people know what can actually have an impact, making sure they know, I will say this every time there's a microphone in front of me, donating to the opponent of someone who's going to win their race because they always win their race, but you just don't like them is not effective. We need to be focusing on seats where you can actually win and not do what I call rage donating. And so we want to talk to people more about how they can better use their time, attention, and resources to have an impact.
Incredible. Yeah, it's such important work now more than ever. I do want to hear you speak to the evolution of your role at Crooked Media. You mentioned you joined as political director. You're in your current role as VP of political strategy.
Yeah.
What has your time there looked like? And also, can I just say, awesome career. Your
career
is
thank you.
Incredible.
This is only my third real job, which is crazy to me. But yeah, I got hired as the political director, which is like a traditional title in politics, and even in media companies, they have political directors, but it looks very different from what I was doing. And when I started, it was just to make sure everyone knew about the elections that were coming up, kind of what are the stakes, and to get people to volunteer on these things. Again, Favreau literally told me when I got hired, we don't know what this job is, but we know we need someone. And that actually gave me so much leeway to make this role into what I wanted it to be. And sometimes I tried things that didn't make sense, and sometimes I tried things that did. And now I have a team of 7 people now, to tracking races, to now, I get to do political commentary and kind of talk about my kind of analysis on the state of things, always trying to uplift Vote Save America in those efforts. But also helping to put on events. In 2022, we hosted our first White House Correspondents' Party, which I begged to do.
Fun.
Had 10 days to plan it. And
not fun.
No, not fun. But it was raining and the event was outside, but it ended up being amazing. It got so much buzz. We hit our budget. I thought we could spend like $15,000 on this party. We hit that an hour in, and I went to my boss. I was like, "Do we close the bar?" And she's like, "Shaniqua, we can't close the bar. We'll just, it'll be fine." And the thing that got so much attention was Susan Rice got turned away at the door.
Stop.
Yes. And so
Susan Rice is an icon, worked in the Obama administration. Yes. She was she was in multiple roles, national defense.
Yeah, the UN ambassador at, yes, she should not have been.
She had multiple, she did. She's iconic.
Yes. And so the reason she got turned away is because we had let too many people in, and the restaurant was like, "No more. We're managing the door now." And then fortunately, the story in the papers, I didn't see it myself, but when they told her she couldn't come in, she just said no. And someone saw what was happening and was like, "We need to let her in." And that was in all of the papers. And so we got a ton of attention. And now we have these events, and I love events.
I want to come to this event.
Yes, okay.
Awesome.
We have it. Now it's every year. So it'll be in April next year. And so you will definitely get an invite. But now it's like much bigger. The whole company has an interest in it now. And so it's a lot. The marketing team's involved. So it's a lot flashier now and fun.
I love a role like this. It does feel like there are endless opportunities. And for the right person, which you are, I would argue, it's just fun to sort of dream up. You touched on how important it is for us to convene and be in community now. Mm-hmm. I think that what you all are doing at larger scale is exactly that. Yeah. I've seen the guys speak. They just did like a live recording here, and it's like the community that you've built is quite impressive and really important in a moment like this.
Vote Save America, we also have a community of volunteers. And at the DNC last year, we had a volunteer appreciation event. And there were 2 volunteers, and they were like, we've only seen each other on Zoom. So all of these people are meeting in person. And 2 of them were teachers. One was like a seasoned teacher, and one was like 3 years in. And seeing them even kind of exchange or talk about, she was kind of giving him guidance on like what he was probably encountering, and they promised to kind of stay in touch so she could help him move forward. And again, this work can be daunting and hard, but being able to bring connections like that together who probably would have never otherwise met is really exciting. And so these in-person events will just help us to keep building on that for our audience.
Totally. So I would love to close this out by asking for some advice.
Okay.
What's something you'd recommend a young person do today to help them pursue a career in politics? And what's one thing you recommend someone do today to feel more empowered in their government?
Okay, so to start a career in politics, the thing that, Jake told me about, pay it forward because none of us get to where we are alone. That is true. And I think most people who work in politics know that. So if you know someone in politics, reach out to them, but send those cold LinkedIn messages. I mean, I get them, and I, again, don't respond to everyone, but I do have those conversations. And I think most people in politics, someone had to pull them into it, and they're just not being a good actor if they won't do that for you. So like send those notes out. I remember I spoke to Melody Barnes because I just sent her a note and I was like, I went to UNC too. And she had a 30-minute conversation with me. Like, people want to help, and they wouldn't be in politics if they didn't want to. On feeling empowered with our government, there's a lot you can do. I would say right now, focus locally. I know national politics are really sexy and it's what people like to focus on, but there's so much attention there. And with just kind of the deterioration of local media, there's a lot of local stuff that's not being covered. And so you need to go in there and see it with your own eyes. If you have something to say, speak up at that city council meeting or that school board meeting, or you could run for office yourself. We launched a candidate recruitment program in July, and there are a lot of things you can do to show up and improve your government and hold them accountable, but one of them is actually to run for office. And down ballot, it's not that expensive. It is scary, yes, but there are tools and resources out there to help you.
We've come to my favorite part of the episode, or favorite segment of our podcast, which is a little game of Would You Rather.
Okay.
You ready? Would you rather start work at the crack of dawn or burn the midnight oil?
Burn the midnight oil.
Would you rather go back to school to learn a new skill or teach what you know to a class of newcomers?
I would rather go back to school to learn a new skill.
Would you rather work at a desk next to a loud chewer or a desk next to a loud talker?
Talker. I talk to my sister on the phone when she's eating sometimes, and she's like, I know. Okay, I'll call you back.
Would you rather write a great piece of feedback or receive a great piece of feedback?
Receive.
Would you rather only answer emails with emojis or only answer calls on FaceTime?
Oh my goodness. Emojis.
A real lose-lose. Would you rather accidentally leave your mic unmuted or your camera on?
Camera on.
Would you rather start a career in politics in the early aughts or in the present day?
Early aughts.
What a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Shaniqua, thank you for being here. Can you just let us know where we can find you and the work we're doing?
You can follow Vote Save America. That is our handle everywhere, or votesaveamerica.com. My handles are like kind of different because I got on different apps at different times. But on Instagram, I'm just Shaniqua M. But you can also just go to my website, shaniquamcclendon.com, and it has all of my social media there.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you for having me. This was fantastic.
Thanks for listening to Work Friends, a podcast from Argent. Listen and follow on all podcast platforms. Subscribe to the Argent YouTube channel for more clips and bonus content. And follow us on Instagram at Argent for all the latest. And before you go, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and leave a comment. It means so much to us. I'm Sally Christensen, and we'll see you next time.
Work Friends.
Work Friends is produced by Gina Marinelli with editing by Ryan Woldoff. Our theme music is by Karina DePiano and Melanie Naima. This episode was recorded at Podhead Studios in New York, New York.